Okay, so conic section circles, Roman numeral 1, standard form. Standard form of any conic section is one that shows the center point, which is H and K. So standard form of a circle is x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals r squared. So in this equation, along with pretty much any other conic section, H and K are the center point. And they are the opposite sign from what you're looking at because it's x minus h and y minus k. The r is the radius of the circle. And the end of the equation is an r squared. So how do you put it into standard form? Basically, you complete the square for x and y. And we will have time to work on completing the square for x and y. All right, Roman numeral 2, graphing. All right, so on your paper, I want you to draw a fairly large pair of axes. Leave some space at the bottom because we're going to add more stuff to the bottom. All right, so graphing a circle is mainly counting spaces. That's what it gets down to. So I'm going to use red for the formula, and then we'll use black for an example. So 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. Say, so I put HK at like 4, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4 up. So let's say that your center H comma K is at 4, 4. So what you have to do is count the radius. And for circles, you count up, down, left, and right. Those are the 4 critical points, and then you just join it into a circle. So if you, let's say our radius is 3. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3 up. That's your radius. And then this point would be H comma K for the Y value, and then plus the radius because you're adding R to go straight up. To go straight down, count 1, 2, 3. This point is H to the right. And then you go to the center K, and then you subtract the radius from the Y value. So K minus R. All right, now we go left. 1, 2, 3. So on the left, right, you're going to go to the right H. So you always like start with the center point, and then we're going to go to the left R, so minus R, and then it has the same K value as the center, so just comma K. And then now to the right, start at the center, 1, 2, 3. So you're going to go to the right H, which gets you to the center. Oops. And then you're going to add R, get to the right, and then it has the same Y value as the center, so comma K. So if you join these 4 points together, you have your circle. All right, so let's do an example. Let's say you've been given the circle x plus 4 squared plus y plus 5 squared equals 4. So when you graph a circle, the first thing you want to do is get the center point. So remember your center point, it's always opposite from what you look at. So my h is negative 4, my k is negative 5. And then to find the radius, remember that 4 is r squared. So to find the radius, you have to take the square root of 4, which is a radius of 2. So you need the center, you need the radius. Okay, let's plot the center. So 4 left, 5 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we label it. Your center is -4, -5. We label the center because that's the name of the circle. It's not actually part of the circle. It's an invisible construct that gives us a location for the circle. All right, so now if the radius is 2, from the center, you're going to count up 2. From the center, you're going to count down 2. From the center, you're going to count to the left 2 and to the right 2. Now, we're going to give those points names, but for right now, draw your circle in from those points. Okay, this is where this formula kind of helps your brain a little bit. So to find the top point, we're going to go to the left 4, so -4. And we went down to -5, but then we went up 2. -5 plus 2 is -3, so -4, -3. Let's go clockwise. The right-hand point is -2 to the left, and then it's down the same number as the center, so -5. Now the bottom point, we're going to go to the left -4, which is what we did to the center, down 5 and down 2 more. So -4, -7. And the last one, we go 4 to the left, 2 more to the left puts us at -6. And we're on the same level as the center, so -5. If at any point you can't fit something onto a shape, it is perfectly legal to draw an arrow and go, this is the center, and give it the coordinate. Especially like what happened to mine, it kind of got mowed over a little bit. So you can always arrow in and put your coordinate in. Okay, any questions about graphing circles? Okay, Roman numeral 3. Writing equations in standard form. Okay, so here's a form of an equation that is not in standard form. X squared plus y squared plus 8x minus 2y plus 15 equals 0. It's just a big jumble of terms. So to put it into standard form, we need to complete the square with the x's and complete the square with the y's. So your first step is going to be to group the x's and the y's together and put like a space in. So x squared plus 8x, those are my x's, leave a space, plus y squared minus 2y, leave a space, and then we're going to subtract the 15, the number to the right. So -15 space, space. Now, if you remember your formula for completing the square, your b value is attached to the x. And so you're going to go b divided by 2 quantity squared. That's the formula. So I'm going to take 8 divided by 2 and square it, which is 4 squared or 16. So 16 goes in the space next to the x's, which means I have to add 16 to the right to keep the left and the right side of the equation balanced. So you add 16, add 16. Okay, now we're going to do the y's. So -2 divided by 2 quantity squared. So -2 is my b value for the y's. -2 divided by 2 is -1, and -1 squared is a 1. So we're going to add 1, add 1. All right, so now you should be able to get a perfect square for x's and y's. Remember the trick, the number right before you square it, that's what goes into the perfect square. So for the x's, this will be x plus 4 quantity squared. Notice we had a 4 before we squared it. Plus y minus 1 quantity squared equals, let's see, -15 plus 16 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. And that is your equation in standard form. So complete the square for the x's, complete the square for the y's, write the equation. So if we wanted the radius of our circle, we would take the square root of 2. Now you say, but how do we graph a square root 2? This is where your ability to estimate radicals is going to be a nice convenient thing. So I'm going to remind you how to estimate radicals. So when you estimate radicals, you think of the perfect square lower than 2, which would be 1, and the square root of 1 is 1. Then think of the perfect square higher than 2, which would be 4, and the square root of 4 is 2. So radical 2 is in between a radical 1 and a radical 4, which means it's in between a 1 and a 2. Now, since it's closer to the 1, it's probably about 1.2 or 1.3. So on your graphing space, you'd go 1 and 0.3, and then you would label it with the radical, even though you're counting spaces with the decimal. Does that make sense? Count spaces with decimal, label with the radical. Yeah, so this is an estimate. And the estimate is used to place your points in the right spot. Okay, Roman numeral 4. Finding equations. All right, example 1. Let's say that they give you a center of 5, 9, and they tell you that the circle goes through the point 5, 16. All right, so our standard form is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So they've given us h and k, which is 5 and 9, so that's easy. What we need is the radius. So to get the radius, we need to find the distance between the point it goes through and the center, because that's the definition of radius. Now, a lot of these radius questions you're going to be able just to count, but let's say that it's not obvious like that, where you're just going to count the spaces. If that's the case, you've got to use distance formula, which is x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. And we practiced that on last night's homework specifically for this situation. So for me to find the radius using the distance formula, I want the difference of the x's. So 5 minus 5 squared plus 16 minus 9 squared. 5 minus 5 is obviously 0. 16 minus 9 is 7. Squared is 49. Square root of 49 is 7. Now for the equation, I need r squared. So I'm going to go 7 squared equals 49. So 49 is going to go into my equation because I had to square it because it's radius squared. Okay, let's put this stuff in. So x minus 5, quantity squared, that's my h, plus y minus 9, quantity squared, equals r squared, which is 49. And we have our equation. All right, last one, example 2. Let's say that they give you the center, which is 3, negative 2, and then they tell you it is tangent to the y-axis. Tangent to the y-axis. Okay, so this one is probably easiest if you sketch it or draw it. So draw a y-axis and an x-axis, and then plot the center on it. So 1, 2, 3 to the right, down 2. And it says it's tangent to the y-axis. Tangent means it only touches it at one point. The only way that that is possible is if the very side of the circle is touching it. That's the only way it could possibly be just tangent. So now that you've drawn it, count the squares. What's the radius of this? 3, right? 1, 2, 3 squares. So your radius is 3, your h is 3, your k is -2. Now we can write our equation. So x minus 3 quantity squared plus, now don't forget to change the sign, y plus 2 quantity squared equals, and it equals r squared, so 3 squared is 9. And that is the equation. So whenever that you start doing like the tangent things, draw a sketch. A lot of the time it will make the problem like this one really very simple. All right, are there any questions?